Hello everyone, my name is Rafal and I would like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I would like to talk a little bit about AI and how AI is impacting our photography industry. I know there's a lot of photographers out there who are freaking out, including myself. I have to be honest. So far I discovered and I've tested, it looks kind of interesting and promising, but at the same time seems like this whole thing becoming really impacting on the big scale what we do. And I want to have a discussion about it today. I want to just share with you some of my opinions, some of my thoughts. I know some of you guys, they're not going to agree with me, but I'm open to have a little bit more and longer discussion and we can exchange some arguments. But I think this whole thing is unfolding at the front of our eyes and we need to have that discussion because this is extremely important, and I deeply believe that it's going to get only better and it's going to definitely impacted our industry. And also I want to pointed out a couple things, a little bit of disclaimer. I'm going to be referring only to headshot photography. So let's jump into it and let's have this short discussion. So first of all, what I want to say, I deeply believe that some of those plugins, those AI elements which are implemented, for example, in Photoshop, and that's the examples I'm going to show you today, is a tool. So this tool definitely can help us with speeding up the process. It can add to our image something interesting. We can change certain things such as backgrounds or clothing. I found that AI is not really good when it comes to the face features, and we're going to have a little bit of deeper discussion about this in a second. But I want to start with statement that AI is a tool, and a lot of people forget about it and they deeply believe that this whole thing is much bigger, and maybe it is, but for me, as the way I see it, it's just a tool. It helps us with manipulating with our images. So before we start getting deeper into this, I want to say that even though we can do a lot of stuff with AI when it comes to the headshots, you still have to start with a headshot. So the AI can't really create your face at this point. Maybe at some point in the near future you can maybe just add some different images, and I know it does it at this point, but if you want to have some good headshot, you have to shoot it and you have to have some basic foundation to move on to taking this image to the next level. And a lot of photographers forget about it and they still believe that they can just take shitty and crappy photo and all of a sudden turn into something magical. It's not true. I don't believe that. I tried some of those AI websites where I put my images and they're spitting out some of images of myself. Some of them, they look decent, but if you start really analyzing, it's still far from perfect. But if we're looking for some reality, we're looking for some images which gonna basically showcase the actual face of the person, you still have to create an image. So that's the first thing. So the next thing what I want to talk about it when it comes to manipulating images with AI, it's a hit and miss at this point because you just basically trying to prompt some of those things what you want to change and the AI spits out some of those things for you. So you don't have really control over what you're creating. You are the completely mercy of AI and there is not much what you can do. You can just try to describe what exactly you're looking for, and then AI use the algorithm and gonna create something for you. So that's kind of takes completely your creative part of it, and you have to just wait what the AI is gonna generate and then gonna spit it out, and you're gonna like it or you're not gonna like it. So that's something which is also interesting for me because you don't really have any control over this. And if you're looking for a specific background or you're looking for specific clothing of the person, you're looking for specific face expression, AI gonna serve you something and you're gonna take it or leave it. So that's something which in my opinion is a little bit concerning because you completely losing control over creating your images and you have to just leave it up to the AI what's gonna create for you. And I know some people are excited about this because they don't have to think what they're getting, they don't have to put any effort, they don't have to put any work into it. They pretty much just gonna describe what they're looking for and they have to wait for the AI what's gonna do for them and what kind of image they're gonna create. And from one hand, I think it's exciting, it's kind of cool. You can just play with it and see what you're gonna get. But as a photographer who likes to be involved in this process, like to be in control over creating specific images, this entire pleasure I think is completely taken away. And as I said, you're completely at the mercy of AI and you have to just trust it. you have to do whatever it's gonna give you, and you're gonna use it whatever it's gonna spit out for you. So that's something which I'm not happy about it, and I know all those photographers out there who deeply believe into creative process, into creating images. That's something which is kind of hard to swallow in my opinion. And I think from one hand, because the process is so quick and you can just get those results right away, but from the other hand, I really like the grind to create something, and I like to have an understanding how this whole thing become real and how I can repeat the process to get the same results. With the AI, simply everything what you're getting every time is going to be different. So the AI doesn't repeat those results. Whatever you get, that's what it is. And sometimes it might be kind of concerning, especially whenever you're creating images for the group and you want to have consistent and the same background. That might be a problem, because every time you're going to input something, you're going to get the different results. So that's, you cannot really apply to headshot photography. For the individuals is a completely different story. You can play with it because every time you get something different, it's kind of cool and you can pick up whatever you like. But for creating consistent results which look exactly the same, at this point is impossible. So the next thing I want to talk about it is how we can implement AI in headshot photography. So there's three different elements. The first one, we can change the background. The second thing, we can work on the subject wardrobe, and the third thing, we can work with subject face expressions. And we're going to dive in right now. We're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, and then we're going to discuss this a little bit further, and I'm going to share with you some other thoughts. So let's jump into the Photoshop and let's kind of go through this whole process and see what kind of results we're going to get. At this point, I have no idea what we're going to get. We're going to try different things and see what kind of outcome we're going to get, and then see if we're going to like it, we're going to hate it, and we're going to also discuss what's the advantages are and also what the weaknesses are when it comes to creating some of those interesting elements of our headshot images. So let's jump into Photoshop and let's discuss this. So before we jump into the Photoshop, I just want to show you how to even start this whole thing. So we're going to be using Photoshop, and you have to go to apps, and then you have to go to beta apps, and you have to install Photoshop Beta. So that's the one which has that AI component into it. As soon as you upload this whole thing, you can open up, and then we can start using right away. Okay, so now we are, as you probably can see, the Photoshop Beta, and then we can start working on our creation. So let's start with how this whole thing works. You have this little panel on the bottom here, you can move it around. So let's kind of put it maybe over here. And this is going to be extremely easy process. And I'm going to show you step by step, and then we're going to try to create some different things. And let's start with creating different background for our image. We're going to select the subject, and the Photoshop is going to do that for us fairly quickly. But in this case, we want to work on the background. So what do we have to do? We have to basically go to this panel and then going to inverse this whole thing. And at this point, we are ready to create our background. So let's start creating those different backgrounds for our image. Now we have to go to generative fill, and we have to pretty much type in what we're looking for. Let's try with different samples and different things where we can put it in and see what we're gonna get. So let's start with something, I would say, really simple. Let's say blurry background. Let's say dark, moody skyline. Of big city. Let's try that. We're gonna go after some cinematic feel, and the next step, we have to just click generate, and the AI is gonna start using their algorithm to creating something interesting. So let's take a look what are we gonna get. It's pretty fast process. It takes about from 10 to about 30 seconds, depends how much input we're gonna give it to the AI, and see what are we gonna get. So those are the results. So typically what happens, we're gonna get three different results. So this is the first one, this is the second one, this one is the third one. So all of them, I think they look pretty good. We can really see that the masking is done fairly good. So we are at the 33%. So the one thing what I've noticed, that the quality of the background typically get a little bit lower resolution, but the bigger size of image we're going to give to the AI, it's going to create a little bit better stuff. So this is pretty good. And we have 3 options, and let's go and try to create something different. So let's go back to our place where we can add the information. And now what are we going to do? Let's say put blurry. I always use that because it seems like it's working really well. I did some tests already. Blurry background, out of focus, office. Let's put more information like furniture. Let's say some side window. What else we can add it here? Why don't we add blue tone? Let's see what we're gonna get. Let's wait and hopefully we're gonna get something interesting. So this one, so probably. This one also, yeah, it's not perfect. It seems like she's sitting on something. There's like a stool, but doesn't work for me. Let's see this one. It's still not working for me. So let's try to maybe scale it down a little bit. Let's remove the blurry background. Let's put out of focus, office furniture. Let's leave the furniture, big room, for example. So this is a little bit better. Let's take a look. This one is a little bit better. Yeah, so you can definitely play with it. You can change some of the wording and see what else we can get out of it. But I think at some point we're going to be able to basically create the words which are going to work best for whatever type of background we're looking for. So let's do one more and see what kind of effect we're going to get. So let's put modern bolding. Let's say do blurry, or let's do out of, let's do blurry. Let's say blue windows, moody. Let's do for the type of lighting we have here. Perfect. So this one, so I'm not impressed with this, but still could work. This one is a little bit better, and the last one is this one, which also I'm not a big fan. And you can just really go to some crazy ideas, and at some point I'm sure you would get the background you're exactly looking for. So it's pretty cool. I think also it's pretty accurate. We're getting some nice results. As you probably notice, also it's adding some hair, so it looks more natural. Has a little bit of issues with the clothing, but I still think you could just take this to the Photoshop and start making some additional adjustment to make this even more real. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So let's switch this off. And now the next step, what are we gonna do? We're gonna work on her clothing. So what are we gonna do in this case? We're gonna take a lasso tool and we're gonna just pretty much just circle around the clothing. So we're gonna make a selection. And now exactly the same process. We're gonna put, let's say, turtle neck, sweater, let's say red with black dots. Let's see what's gonna happen in this case. Yeah, the neckline is fairly long. Also, what I've noticed that as soon as you start using AI for the skin, for any face features, and I'll show you in a second, the quality of the skin texture just goes out of the window. So I'm not really a big fan of this. And also you can see her neck is extremely stretched, so it looks really unnatural. Let's try to see this one. This one is a little bit better. Added a little bit of hair and shortened the hair and makes the hair looks natural. So that's cool. And what is the next one? So again, the neck is extremely stretched, looks extremely unnatural. So in this case, that probably wouldn't work. So let's kind of change this a little bit and let's use alt sweater with white and black stripes. Let's try that just for the fun of it. So that looks definitely better. This one, same thing. We can see that the quality of the hair just went completely out of window, so it's not matching at all. But the clothing, I think it's fairly decent. And let's see this one. So this one looks a little bit better. So let's do one more for the business purposes. Let's do black business jacket with white shirt. Standard look. Let's see what's gonna do. So that looks pretty decent. Let's see the next one. That looks okay. So yeah, all of those looks, I think they pretty good so far. The one thing what I want to point it out here that a lot of people don't really realize, that AI is pretty good when it comes to creating, let's say, clothing, but when it comes to switching textures, like in this case, when it comes to the hair, you can really see that this whole thing is all over the place. And that's the problem, I think, with the AI we have nowadays. And I deeply believe that this whole thing is going to get better. It's still a long way to go, because a lot of us at the first glimpse, when we look at it, looks kind of cool. But then when you start really digging into this and we start really paying attention to details, you really clearly can see that this whole thing is far from perfect. So I know this whole thing looks exciting at the beginning. This whole thing looks really neat, but we as a photographers, we're really good when it comes to paying attention to details, and those details are not there yet. So overall, it looks, I would say, good enough, but it's far from perfect. So that's what we have to also remember. Okay, so now let's go to the more crazy stuff, and let's see how AI is going to work with this. So let's, for example, try to work on her lips. So let's make a circle around it, and let's change dark red lips. Let's see what's going to do in this case. So as you probably can see, this whole thing is really bad. So that's not gonna work. And I've tried many times to do this, and I can tell you that every time I've done it, it looks absolutely horrifying. So this is not gonna work. Let's try and do something on her eyes. Circle the eyes. And let's create smoky eyes. Let's see what it's gonna do. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. This looks absolutely unacceptable and really bad. So also let's stop this. So as you probably notice, when it comes to the backgrounds, that's something which doing pretty good job, and we can definitely play with this. We can get some decent results. The same when it comes to the clothing. I've also noticed that this is pretty decent, and you can really use this tool to create some interesting looks. Or if you have a client who, let's say, have wrinkle shirt or whatever, and then you can change it, I think that would be good enough to change some of those stuff and then make this whole thing looks pretty cool. Hit and miss most of the time, so you have to play with it. You have to try different words, you have to put different prompts to create something which gonna makes you happy. Okay, so let's jump out of the Photoshop and let's have a little bit more discussion what's my feelings is about this whole thing. So as I mentioned, AI does great job when it comes to the background and clothing. When it comes to the face features, at this point it's completely garbage and it's not usable by any means. So I think this is good for us because it's going to be a little bit of a long way by the time the AI pick up with those type of elements. So that's something which is promising for us because it gives us a little bit of time to basically adopt this whole new technology. But there's one more element which I want to talk about it, and I don't think anyone is mentioning this, but I just thought about it when I started playing with this tool. And what happened was I started kind of like using this to playing with those backgrounds, whatever, and I was just keep clicking and I was just keep getting the new results. But what it kind of makes me realize, I felt like I've been playing a slot machine in Las Vegas. And as you probably know, this whole thing is highly addictive. This whole thing is just something that people cannot really get their hands off out of this whole thing. And I felt exactly the same thing. I was just getting this dopamine hit every time I was getting those new results. And the same when it happens to our cell phones, you just keep looking at it sometimes without even thinking about that. And I've noticed this whole thing applying to this as well. So in conclusion, what I want to say, this whole tool allows us to speed up some of those stuff and helps us with creating some interesting stuff. But this is basically taking away our knowledge about photography. And we're not photographers anymore. I think just digital creators. That's how we can call those people who are gonna be doing this professionally. But you basically removing all those skills which you learn about photography, because you have to understand how the lighting works, how the setting works, how the equipment works, how the different setups works. There's a lot of knowledge which we had to have in order to create headshots. But in this case, you're completely removed from that and you don't really have to think about it anymore, and it's not becoming a problem. So our understanding of creating the headshots goes completely out of window. So that's kind of what scares me the most, because in order to create images, you have to have at least some basic knowledge. This whole thing right now is removed. We're not going to understand how the lighting works, what the lighting does, how it impacts image, how we can control it, how we can manipulate it, how we can create something interesting. And this entire creative process is pretty much goes down the drain. And I think that, I don't know, this is just a part of our journey, or this is how this whole thing's gonna grow on us and how we can adapt to this. But that's the element which I think is going to be extremely missing if I'm going to go that path, which I don't know at this point. I really don't want to be honest with you. But this is something which is basically at the front of our eyes, and we can reach that at this point. We can use it, we can utilize, and then we can just basically put in our business to create and get clients. So we'll see how this whole thing unfolds, but this is something which concerns me the most, that at some point we're going to get pretty much addicted to it, and it's not gonna do any good. We're not gonna basically develop our knowledge. It's gonna pretty much just dumb us down to the point where we're not gonna be even able to understand how this whole thing works. So those are my conclusions. I think it's an amazing tool at this point to play with, to check it, to see what it can do for you. I think it's become part of our creative process at some point, but at this point we are at the early stages. As you probably noticed, there's some pros, there's some cons of this, and I just want to have a little bit deeper discussion. What do you guys think about it? Did you guys like the results? Did you guys like how this whole thing works? Are you scared of this? Are you feeling kind of like exciting about it? I would love to hear from you. So let me know what you guys think, and let's have a little bit of deeper discussion. So I've been talking about it a lot in this video, so please feel free to reach out if you have more questions, and let's have this conversation going about how this AI is going to impact our industry and everything what we do related to headshot photography. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay tuned, and I'll chat with you guys very soon. Bye-bye.